video we did was a marathon hour-long documentary, or more of a docudrama, on how to use GRO. Hopefully this one will be shorter. So I'm in the middle of a project now and decided to turn the mic on to help people understand how to use the GRO to get from point A to point B. In this case, point A to point B would be looking at a family on Family Search and fleshing out that family using the GRO index, getting us a list here, and making sure that we can support that over here on Ancestry by building a micro tree and finding sources for that. So the example I have today is Thomas Syred and his family. Notice over here that we already do have the mother's maiden name, which is good. It makes it easier for us to use the GRO. And he has 4 kids. The first thing I noticed is between the third and fourth kid, there's 14 years difference. Now, that would be an indication that either there's a lot of people missing between there, or the fourth child is not really part of this family. So I ran this family through using the mother's maiden name, Way, here, the father's last name here, and either typed in a name to start or just used blank here in male and just went by 2-year increments or 3-year increments and just walked through from 1840 to 1870 looking for kids. I was able to bring back all of these kids here, and even at this level, I still have to wonder if there's more than one family here. So I do have to make sure that I have censuses that back up these people through the years. So I got to the last kid here in 1865 and ran him into GRO here by name, because there's nothing that shows up for the years of 1865 except for Arthur Owen in 1864, whose mother's last name is Way. So with George William here, William George, there is no result. And even if I take out the mother's maiden name and just try to hit George or William George here in 65, then I'll get back a number of names. So at this point, I don't believe he's a part of this family, but I would have to go through and prove it incorrectly, which is how I got to this point with this family in the first place. Was I was chasing a similarly named individual, trying to prove that he was different from the person in my family, and ended up going down this can of worms, if you will, to flesh out this family to make sure that he wasn't my family. There's nothing in here that sticks out to me, because the only source we have for William George over here actually comes from his death in Seattle, Washington. So there's nothing short of London, England here on the birth. We would have to go back and try to track his actual immigration and where he came from. Sometimes the immigration information may have the actual town to get us down further. But the fact that we ran this with Way and there was no return at all for anywhere in the UK there, it's just a different thing we have to work through that takes a lot longer to do. So we won't do that. So I have this family over here in Family Search. I have all of these documented that these kids come from Way, and I've used the census over here to build these out, except for a couple. I've got Horace here, who I left in lowercase because I found him here in the GRO index, but I did not find him in a census, so I still have to do some work on this. So once you have the initial family here, and you've got that, and we can come over and see Thomas has 0 sources, and we can see that up here as well. So what we'd want to do is actually add these sources to Thomas. So we'd click on the menu for Family Search and do compare. And of course, you always have to sign in because it kicks you out pretty quickly. So we did run into his death. We do know that Monks is a better or more detailed location. I've noticed it's better to go from the bottom here, because as these things expand out, when you click on them, they take up more space. So we'll save changes, and that pushes the sources that we gathered here on Ancestry over here. So if we refresh his page here, he should end up with 8 sources. So that's what we pushed over. So now at least he has something people can look at. Family Search has 4 possible research help. So there are 4 sources here. We can see the 51 census and the 41 census is here. Here's wills and administrations. I'm not sure if we have that one over here. Maybe the probate that matches up with that. But you see we were able to get 8 here from Ancestry and only 4 are available as potentials here on Family Search. So once you've got him established and you've got the wife established, then we go to a kid. So I just opened up a census, and this is how I run through who is in the family based on a census record. So I was able to find most of those kids in the censuses in 41, 51, or 61. So going to the first son, Thomas, then I would go to Thomas, and I would use the hints here to flesh him out as he came through the census and make sure that I get his birth index, which is critical to matching up this information to indicate that Wei really is his mother. So going through his sources and figuring this out, I was able to find out that he has a wife, but I'm not sure who his wife's parents are. So I put her on a different tab here and thought we'd just use the GRO index really quickly to go find her. So if you have the information that you know her name and you can actually find the civil registration birth index as a source, then we can click on that and actually go match it up here. She's in 45. And actually you can take off this and get down to January, and that's should return just her. And there she is. So we're going to take a wild guess that Bishop is her mother's name. So we'll accept this. And I always like to change this to about January so that I know it's from the index. And then we'll change her name here as we found her in a marriage, so we knew what the parents' names were. We didn't know her mother's maiden name. So with that, we'd be able to take this and go to Richard and Elizabeth and hopefully find a marriage record and maybe get more information about siblings that exist. So that's how we would handle, and on a singular basis, we can go look up somebody in the GRO and find out who the mother's maiden name is. So let's go back out here. So we fleshed out Thomas. If we go back to here, we see that Thomas has 0 sources. So he doesn't have anything yet. So he's not going to be married over here either. So we'll push that over later. But let's jump over to Horace. Horace is an example of someone I said that we didn't find anywhere except on GRO. So we're going to actually look for a death record on him. Now we can do a search. We know that he was October 1848 from the GRO. So we'll come in and we'll find it here. So here's his record for birth. So I actually entered him first from the GRO index, and now I'm just documenting that coming through here. So I've got about October. I like to make sure I do this consistently. So we'll add that, and then we'll go back and see if we can find a death record. And we do that because we didn't find him in a census, so we have to presume that he passed away early. So here's a death record for 49. I'm on Thomas. I need Horace. I have to go back and watch how I clicked that and got the wrong place. So here's a death record in 49. So I'm going to guess that that's him. And we can match this. On the GRO. So this is about January. And I should have changed his name then, since I have now established sources for him so that I know that he is real. So we'll go back up here and make sure that we find this and put it in his document here that we give to the mother. So he's 48. And we'll put in Wei here for the mother's maiden name again and drop this to any quarter. And that should return us. So here he is, 48 in December. So we simply click on death. It takes out the mother's maiden name because that wasn't tracked. If he died in 48, he'll be here. If not, we'll put the 2 years on there, 2-year window. So if he came back in 48 in December, he would have been in the first 3 months. So here he is at 0, not quite a year, but it's there. So we'll come into our record here and paste in so that we have that information here that we'll copy over to the mother. We've got Horace's 2 indexes here, then we can add him. So we'll add him straight to Family Search. I don't have the wife on yet, so we'll back out of this and go back to the father and add from Family Search. So this is a good path to go to. When you're in Ancestry and you do add relatives, you'll get this list back, which is the list that they currently have on Family Search. So we'll end up matching up the kids at some point in time, but we'll just add Ann Way so that when we do Horace, who's back on this window, I think, that I'll make sure that he gets added with both parents as a part of his family. So we'll just add him as a new individual on Family Search, and when we refresh over here, then Horace will be a part of this family. At some point in time, he'll be a part of the family. Here he goes. So here's Horace that we just added. So we went through the process of sourcing the parents first, and then starting with the kids one at a time and sourcing them and finding their spouses if they're there and walking back down the list. Now that we've done Horace, he should be capitalized here. So we would just continue that same thing for each of these individuals, trying to flesh out and document and get them all sourced as we push them over here to make this family larger. As I go through the kids, without making you go through that painful, lengthy process, I ran into a probate record. So I wanted to review that because they're so much fun and we can always find good things in here. So these are really good to view. And running down to Cyrud, here's George right here. So this is where he's from. The date he actually died on the 18th of January. So we can go over here and edit this because we actually know what it is now. And let's look for the thing. So Charles Edwards. So Edwards is his middle name. So we can find that here. Put that in. And Minnie Jane Harding, wife of Ernest William Harding. So we're going to presume that she married a Harding. So we'll open her up here and add a spouse. Ernest William Harding. It's always good when you're trying to record this and while you type. So we'll put a question mark here. Just so we remember we got this from somewhere else. She's got 7 hints coming up, so that's good. And that's all we ended up with. So I would say that's a match, that we have several of the kids in there. So we'll add that. And call that good.